In 1480, Romania, Prince Vlad lived peacefully with his beloved wife Elisabetta, symbolized by a music box he once gifted her. Their happiness ended when Captain Targol warned of an Ottoman invasion. Vlad left Elisabetta in guarded care and sought the Pope's blessing before leading his army, though he doubted whether endless bloodshed could truly be God's will. His only prayer was for Elisabetta's safety. While she was being escorted, Ottoman archers attacked, forcing her guards to flee with her. On the battlefield, Vlad unleashed fire and steel against the enemy, gaining the upper hand, until news arrived that Elisabetta had been ambushed. He rushed to her aid, but in the chaos, his furious strike not only killed her attackers, it fatally wounded Elisabetta too. Elisabetta gave Vlad a soft smile before dying in his arms, leaving him broken with grief. After the battle, he went to the Pope and cried that God hadn't even given him the chance to say goodbye. In his pain, he begged for Elisabetta to be brought back to life. The Pope told him it was impossible. She was gone and resting in heaven. But Vlad refused to accept it. In anger, he grabbed the Pope, broke a guard's staff, and shouted that if God was real, he could return her. He warned that if she wasn't brought back, his soul would no longer belong to God. Then, in rage, he killed the Pope with the staff. At that moment, Vlad turned his back on faith forever. As he spread his arms, lightning flashed, and the statues of Christ began to cry tears of blood. 4 centuries later, in a private clinic, a doctor welcomed a priest. He admitted that the case ahead was so serious, even the Queen of England was disturbed. Together they walked past chained patients until they reached the basement, where a young Italian woman named Maria was imprisoned. She was only 30 and also the fiancée of the Queen's grandson, Henry. The priest asked her story. The doctor explained it began on her wedding day. She had refused to enter the church and gone into hysteria at the sight of a priest. The strangest part was her birth records, which dated back to 1759. Suspecting something unnatural, the priest examined her teeth and confirmed she was a vampire, the first ever captured alive. At that moment, Maria spoke, begging the doctor not to believe him. To prove it, the priest opened a window. Sunlight burned Maria's skin until it was shut again. Then he raised a cross, which burst into flames, making her laugh. Even the doctor realized this was beyond science. The priest promised Maria that if she told the truth, he would try to send her home, and to earn her trust, he gave her a drop of blood. Relieved, she agreed to talk. After examining her further, the priest concluded she wasn't a first-generation vampire. He revealed the church had long searched for the very first one, the father of them all. Maria then spoke of her master, a prince who would soon come for her. He was looking for his lost princess, a woman of extraordinary beauty. The priest declared that finding this princess was their real mission, for she would lead them to the vampire. Maria only laughed and mocked them, wishing them luck. Jonathan, a notary, traveled alone on snowy roads when his coachman refused to go further, warning him about wolves. Before leaving, the coachman gave him a cross for protection, though Jonathan admitted he didn't believe in God. Torch in hand, he continued on foot, uneasy as glowing wolf eyes followed him from the darkness. Soon, a massive castle rose before him. As he crossed the bridge, the gates slammed shut behind, trapping him inside. The giant doors opened by themselves, and once he entered, they closed again. Lightning flashed, revealing a figure on the balcony. Then suddenly, the same figure stood behind him. The man's pale skin, white hair, and wrinkled face made him look otherworldly. Taking Jonathan's torch, he lit the hall with a brazier. Jonathan introduced himself, and the man welcomed him, remarking on his youth before introducing himself as Vlad II, Prince of Wallachia, better known as Dracula. He then invited Jonathan to dine with him in the grand hall. Jonathan, starving, ate hungrily, while noting that such a massive castle must need many workers. Dracula agreed he had servants, but none visible to guests. When asked why he wasn't eating, Dracula only smiled, saying he would dine later, and with a simple gesture pulled the dishes toward himself. Then, at the dining table, a rat appears, and Dracula picks it up with a fork, pours its blood into a glass, and tastes it. Jonathan then revealed the real purpose of his visit. His partner Jenkins had arranged for them to buy an old abbey in Paris, intending to turn it into a hospital for the upcoming Universal Exposition. As he laid out the plans, the cross the coachman had given him slipped to the floor. Dracula asked if he was religious, but Jonathan dismissed it as just a protective charm. Dracula tossed it into the fire without hesitation. Later, Dracula led Jonathan to his room, warning him not to leave until morning. When Jonathan asked what danger existed, Dracula explained that old castles carry memories that can haunt men. Jonathan, still skeptical, said he didn't believe in superstitions. Dracula left him to spend the night alone. Jonathan noticed a torn book in his room just as Dracula played a phonograph and vanished into the castle's depths. Elsewhere, the priest met Henry, Maria's fiancé. Henry worried about her health, but the priest assured him she was fine physically, though she carried a strange power beyond human limits. Searching their wedding chamber, the priest uncovered the missing page from Dracula's book, showing a photograph of a woman, Elisabetta. Back in the castle, Jonathan wandered the halls and found a lit cellar where a coffin lay. Inside, Vlad rested, warning him not to leave his room. Suddenly, a gargoyle attacked, knocking him unconscious. He awoke chained, guarded by gargoyles. When Jonathan called on God, Vlad silenced him, saying God and the devil were just opposing forces, both uncaring about mankind. Jonathan was then hung upside down so his blood could be drained. Vlad explained he was cursed to wander forever, surviving only on human blood. Cutting Jonathan's neck, he collected it into a vessel. Jonathan weakly asked how such cruelty could exist if God was truly loving. Vlad mocked him, reminding him of his past disbelief, but now Jonathan insisted he believed. Amused, Dracula promised him one last wish. With his final strength, Jonathan asked to hear his story. Moved by Jonathan's request, Vlad ordered the gargoyles to unchain him and tie him to a chair, where he began his story. He revealed that life was a cruel trial, while death was a mercy, one that God had denied him. Once he had been God's loyal servant. But everything changed when his beloved wife, Princess Elisabetta, was taken from him. For 4 centuries he had waited for her return. The Black Plague only deepened his torment, killing millions, especially women who hid in churches, places barred to him. Vlad admitted that to live without love was the worst curse. Many times he had tried to end his life by leaping from castle towers, but even death was refused. In time, numbness replaced sorrow. Realizing he could not find Elisabetta on his own, he devised ways to draw her to him. He spent a century creating a perfume that could capture the souls of flowers. This fragrance bewitched crowds wherever it spread, even reaching the French court at Versailles. There, he thought he had found Elisabetta reborn in a girl named Isabel. But when he realized he was wrong, despair consumed him. He began turning women into his thralls, hoping one of them would be her. Maria was among those bitten, yet none could fill the emptiness. He even returned to Elisabetta's grave, weeping over her ashes, while his gargoyles piled gold and treasures before him, all meaningless. Jonathan then tried to reach him, reminding Vlad that he too had a fiancée waiting for him, a woman he had sworn to marry. For Dracula, this only deepened the tragedy. Jonathan pleaded, if he died here, his beloved would be destroyed by grief. Jonathan carried a locket with his fiancée's picture. When the gargoyles placed it before Vlad, he froze. The face was identical to Elisabetta. Jonathan said her name was Mina, but Vlad became convinced she was his lost wife reborn. He spared Jonathan's life, ordering the gargoyles to keep him imprisoned, and began preparing to reunite with Mina. Letters were sent out through his servants. Meanwhile, the priest showed the doctor Elisabetta's photo, explaining that Dracula had searched for her for 4 centuries. The doctor noticed she was left-handed, which the priest confirmed. He also revealed from a German book that vampires were God's curse, and only repentance, a stake through the heart, and beheading could free both them and their victims. At that moment, a young doctor reported seeing a woman who looks just like the photo. She introduced herself as Mina, Maria's friend. Mina explained she had been with Maria since a reception, but after a priest appeared, Maria's behavior had changed. She admitted she was engaged to Jonathan, though the engagement felt rushed, almost like a bad omen. She confessed she loved him, but often felt she belonged to another time. Before leaving, she wrote her address, left-handed, just like Elisabetta. Dracula reached an old abbey disguised as a beggar. The nuns let him in, but when he revealed his true form, one warned that his magic had no power in God's house. Arrogantly, he mocked her by spraying perfume on the crucifix. Soon, the nuns fell under his spell, one even offering herself. Dracula drank their blood, regained strength, and left for his castle. Meanwhile, Jonathan, watching from his cell, feared Dracula would reach Mina first. He made a rope from his clothes to escape, but gargoyles spotted him, pulled him down, and threw him into the snow. He slid to a frozen river. The ice broke under the pursuing gargoyles, drowning them. Injured but alive, Jonathan survived until dawn. At the same time, Dracula arrived in Paris and entered the hospital where Maria was held. The crowd admired him, except for a young doctor who tried to stop him. Ignoring resistance, Dracula went to Maria's cell, where she called him Master. He rewarded her with the young doctor, whose blood she drank to her delight. The next day, the priest discovered the young doctor had become a vampire. He learned Maria hadn't escaped alone. Dracula had helped her. Alarmed, he warned that Mina was in serious danger. At her pension, Mina was startled to see Maria, who claimed her illness had vanished and the doctors discharged her. Maria gave Mina tickets to a celebration and insisted she join to meet a special friend. At the Grand Hotel, Dracula appeared. Seeing Mina, he was reminded of his late wife, Elisabetta. Introduced by Maria, Dracula praised Mina, and she sensed a strange, romantic familiarity. He revealed he was Prince Vlad of Wallachia, though many called him Dracula. At the fair, Mina tried to involve him in games, but Maria separated them. Dracula appeared in a haunted house to rescue her, later guiding her at a shooting stall. Every gesture made him believe Mina was Elisabetta reborn. Finally, he invited them to his estate. From the balcony, Mina admired the castle-like property, and Dracula learned she loved quiet, rural life, confirming his growing attachment. Dracula took Mina to a room and showed her a 17th-century music box that had belonged to his late wife. He admitted he was a widower and played the haunting tune, which stirred strange, familiar visions in Mina. When he called her Elisabetta, she insisted she was not and was soon to be married. Dracula asked her to accept the music box as a gift. Maria suddenly arrived and took Mina away. Later, Dracula escorted her home. Mina thanked him, and he confessed he hadn't felt joy in centuries. Inside, Mina was horrified to see Jonathan, injured and half dead, with the priest and doctor. The priest explained Jonathan had barely escaped Dracula's castle and revealed the truth. The man she had spent time with was Count Dracula, the cause of Maria's condition and countless disasters. Mina refused to believe it, insisting Dracula had been kind. The priest warned that Maria had sucked a doctor's blood and escaped. He insisted Mina be examined. Mina denied any wrongdoing had occurred and insisted Dracula had always treated her with respect. The priest explained Dracula used a perfume that could override free will. Terrified, Mina allowed a check and, finding no bite marks, locked herself in her room. As Jonathan recovered, Mina sat alone with the music box. Its melody shook her deeply, stirring visions of another life. In the midst of her fear, Dracula appeared, reassuring her that he meant no harm. The landlady knocked, upset about the midnight music. Mina, scared, asked Dracula to leave. Instead, he went to the window as if to die. Mina begged him not to. He said he could disappear forever, but had waited 400 years for this moment. She called him a sorcerer. He admitted he once used perfumes and powers to control people, but never her, and smashed the vial to prove it. Mina noted he survived on human blood. He agreed, but said she was never his victim. She is his love. Dracula revealed his curse. He was no longer human, doomed to live in darkness. Mina asked why he involved her. He said it was grief over losing his wife, Elisabetta. At that moment, blood dripped from Mina's nose. Gently, Dracula touched it, tasted it, and called it incomparable. He confessed that without blood he was nothing more than a frail, withering old man. Mina trembled, calling him a liar and a deceiver, but he held her hands tenderly and reminded her of her own words. "My prince, my king, my life." Her tears stopped. Mina realized she could not live without him. Overcome with passion, she begged him to make her part of his body and soul. Dracula finally gave in. The priest sensed Dracula's presence in Mina's house, but found only his hat. Realizing Dracula had taken her, Jonathan erupted in anger, calling him a demon, while the priest urged calm. Meanwhile, Maria returned to her fiancé Henry and tried to bite him. The priest, doctor, and Jonathan intervened. Jonathan, despite his weakness, beheaded Maria with a decorative sword. Her body still clung to the priest until he drove an iron crucifix through her chest, and her body turned to ash. Meanwhile, Dracula's loyal servants carried a great coffin back to the castle. Inside was not only Dracula, but Mina too. In his grand hall, Dracula welcomed her, guiding her through the palace and presenting her before all as Princess Elisabetta. When Mina played the music box, its soft melody filled the castle. Smiling, Dracula told her it was the same tune that had always called out to him. Outside, the police, doctor, priest, Henry, and Jonathan had tracked Dracula's servants to the castle and prepared cannons, fearing Mina's soul was in danger. Inside, Dracula, absorbed in Mina, was interrupted as the walls shook from the cannon fire. Gargoyles attacked the intruders, and Dracula left Mina behind, promising to return. Below, officials found a tomb-like furnace and fired at it, but Dracula appeared behind Jonathan, dagger in hand, reminding him that he had once spared his life before slaughtering the men. Henry tried to fight, but Dracula bit his neck, and only the priest remained. The priest explained his mission was to save, not fight, while Dracula said his real battle was with God. The priest revealed Dracula was truly fighting himself, not God, and that humans shed blood for their own pride, not for divine will. He urged Dracula to see this as a chance for redemption, but warned that Mina was not his salvation, she could be his destruction. Mina's terrified scream echoed through the castle, and Dracula rushed to her. Officers stormed the halls, but his gargoyles slowed them while he cut down anyone in his path. Finally, he found Mina hiding. For a moment, he feared he had lost her, yet holding her close reminded him that if he died, the curse would die too. Mina begged him not to end his life, insisting he was her freedom, not her prison. Torn, Dracula reflected on his centuries of grief and prayer for Elisabetta's soul. The priest reminded him that salvation was possible if he saved Mina. Mina pounded on the locked door while Dracula opened his arms to fate. The priest struck, driving the stake into his heart. In that single instant, the centuries of torment were lifted, and Dracula's true form surfaced, an old, fragile man, stripped of his power. His body aged within seconds, skin sinking, bones weakening until he crumbled in Mina's arms. She carried him to the altar, sobbing as his body collapsed into dust. From within the castle, children began to emerge, once monstrous gargoyles, now restored to their human selves. Confused and weak, they stumbled into freedom as though reborn. Jonathan rushed to find Mina, but discovered her still clinging to Dracula's ashes. As the dust rose into the air, drawn upward by an unseen power, Jonathan understood what it meant. Mina's fate had diverged from his. With a broken heart, he left her there. The priest, his mission fulfilled, also departed the ruins. Dracula's remains drifted skyward, carried into eternity, and with them ended a love story born in grief, cursed by blood, and sealed in tragedy.
So, dear viewers, how did you like this recap? Do let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting updates. Thank you.